Okay, so this week we get to do real anatomy. Yay! This week we're doing tissues, also known as histology, which literally means the study of tissues. Ology is the nature of or the study of, and hist or histo meaning tissues. Ology always means the study of, like biology is the study of living things. Histology is also called microanatomy, which are things you can only see with magnification, as opposed to gross anatomy, which is the anatomy of things you can see with the unaided eye. But anyway, that's enough about etymology, which is actually the study of word origins. So ology. Anyway, so we're doing tissues this week. Sorry, I got way off track. Talking about we've talked about the placement of body organs and where they are in the body and what they look like and the names of those. We've talked about what cells look like and what the parts of cells are and what they're made of. And we've also talked about that there are different types of cells. And we looked at a couple of those, like blood cells, just briefly back a couple week before last. We talked about the microscope, and we've talked about how things get into and out of cells, the cell membrane, cell transport, and a little bit about water getting into and out of the cells. And that should tell you the water is really, really important for us. Let's see, this week we're going to talk about how cells group together to perform a certain function. Now, if you remember that an organ is a group of tissues that perform a certain function within the body. So this week we learned that each different tissue in an organ has a different function, and each tissue then works together with other tissues inside an organ to make that organ what it is, and the properties of all those cells make the tissues do what they do. So the cells have properties that make the tissues do what they do. Collections of tissues come together to make an organ do what it does. So if you looked at the chapter, I know this looks overwhelming. There's a lot of pictures in there. There are 8 or 9 different, depending on how you count it, different epithelial tissues, 11 connective tissues, 1 type of nervous tissue with 2 types of cells, nerve cells and glial cells. And then there's 3 types of muscle tissue. So it's like 23 or 24, 25 different types of tissues, depending on how you count it, but you'll need to learn. So, but it's all doable. Just take this in chunks and you can get it. One thing also I want you to realize is that when you're talking about a tissue, we're often pointing to a portion of a photograph or photomicrograph. So, like this is Figure 6.2 in your book, and this is Chapter 6. So, like this figure here, this is 6.2D. This is stratified squamous epithelium, but we're talking about this portion up here, not the part down here. And if we look over here, this is simple squamous epithelium. We're talking about just this one thin layer of cells up here, not the stuff down here. This is connective tissue. This is the epithelial layer up here. And in cuboidal tissue, you have these square-shaped cells. We're talking about this. The stuff in between is all connective tissue. And we'll talk, and that's in the next part of this chapter. We talk about connective tissues. So remember, when you're looking at photomicrograph, sometimes you're only looking at a little piece of what's pictured in that photomicrograph. Especially this happens a lot with epithelial tissues because they line things, and so there's one layer of them, then there's a whole bunch of other junk underneath them. And so once you know all the tissues, you'll realize what all those different layers are in these tissues when you take a look at them. So, or in a tissue section, I should say, or organ section. Anyway, let's see. So the pictures in your book are all, let's see. Oh, the pictures of connective tissue, sorry, and nervous tissue and muscle tissue, they're really all just of those tissues. There's nothing else around them, I think, except for maybe one picture of the adipose tissue. But the epithelial tissues often like have other stuff around them. So just be aware that there may be other things in those pictures that aren't what you're looking for. If you use the Practice Anatomy Lab portion on Pearson, you'll see a lot of times they'll have a picture and then it zooms in on a certain part. And so when you zoom out, you will actually see several tissues in that zoomed out part. But as you zoom in, it'll show you just a single type of tissue. For the activities this week, you need to read the chapter, look at all the pictures in the chapter so you're familiar with them, then watch me drone on about the tissues in a 2 hour and 40-minute lecture. Yes, I know that's really long. That's how long it would have been in lab. We just start with a 3-minute quiz, and then I would add on, I'd have 2.5 hours, and I would end right on the nose of 3 hours. So this is the longest series of lectures in the whole course. So it's all downhill from here. So, but don't think I'm just piling it on you because we're online. This is how long it would actually take. So, and remember, if you're a little bit bored, you can speed me up a little bit with that little gear icon down in the corner of the YouTube window, and it lets you go, 1/2, 2 times speed, whatever you can take, whatever you want to do. Let's see. When you're watching the videos, follow along with the study guide. Also, I did a 1-page summary of all of the tissues, and I've put them out that way, the way that they, I think, are laid out in the book. The book talks about proper and specialized connective tissue. I'm not real wild about those terms, but I laid it out that way in the 1-sheet description, just to kind of match the book. So let's see. After the lecture, then you'll be ready to do the questions in the book, and also do the online activities on Pearson. And normally, we would look at microscope slides in the labs. We'd look at all these tissues under the microscope. So use the pictures in the book. Also, look on Pearson. Those things are labeled nicely. There's a little tab up there that you can click that tab, and it'll point to what you're supposed to be looking at. So it'll point to and label the various tissues that are in that particular picture. When you look at Practice Anatomy Lab, you click on the left side of the study area, then there's a button in the middle called Launch Study Area, then you'll see a button for a page that says Practice Anatomy Lab, and there will be a button at the bottom of the page that says PAL 3.1. Click that button, then you'll see the Histology section on the right. Click that, and it expands out, and you'll see different sections for epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous, I think is the order they go. And you can click on those and see those pictures. They've got some really nice pictures in there. They're the same pictures that are in your book, but there's just more. But they have more pictures that show you a little bit more stuff there. Let's see. They also have flashcards on Pearson if you want to use those. I rarely use flashcards. Some people love them, so do whatever works for you. Do you. I highly, strongly, very much encourage you to draw pictures of things. I think it really, really helps cement things in your brain. So when you see something, see things, draw. It doesn't have to be a pretty diagram. Just draw things and point to what you're seeing. It really helps you a lot. And if you want to, get pens or pencils with different colors, do that, and it really helps. I think it helps a lot. The quiz over Lab 5 tissues is available through October 1st. And for the quiz, you'll need to know what things are called and what they look like. All right. You'll notice the book also has where these tissues are located. I'm not going to ask you that because I think that's really difficult, especially if you don't know, if we haven't studied that organ or that organ system. I think it's really hard to understand that part. So I'm not going to ask you where something is in the body. I'm going to, you need to know what it looks like and the name of it. So for instance, what exactly is a kidney tubule, and what does it look like? We don't know at this point. What does the papillary dermis look like versus the reticular dermis? It has those kind of tissues, pictures in here, but you don't know what that stuff is. We haven't gotten to the integumentary system yet. So just know what the picture is and what it's called. Okay, you don't have to know where the tissue is found in the body. Let's see, because we'll have plenty of time to talk later as the semester goes on about where these are in various organs, how they all fit together, and how all these tissues work together. The goal right now is when I mention simple squamous epithelium or dense regular connective tissue or dense irregular connective tissue, something like that, 3 or 4 weeks from now, that you'll have a picture in your head of what that looks like. So that's my goal for this lab. I should also point out that I put some additional video resources on there. I put a link to those down below the study guides, so down below. They're just different people talking about the same things I'm talking about. So if you want to hear it in a different way from somebody else, Feel free to use those links. Both of them use drawings. The guy does it on a whiteboard. The lady does it on a pad of paper right in front of her. And so you see the guy, you never see the lady. So it's, but I think they're useful. Let's see. The book talks about, and they make a big deal in every single chapter about a concept map, which I think of as it's more of a flow chart. It's a decision tree where it's like, okay, you have this one feature, and then you look for another feature, and that starts dividing it out into different categories. I'm not sure how useful that is to do by yourselves. That may work for you. I think it would be difficult to do by yourself. I think it's easier in a group setting, but I'll play around with setting up like a Google Jamboard or something like that. And if I think it helps, then I'll send out a notice that's there, and you guys can play around with that. So if anyone wants to review any of this stuff on Zoom with me, let me know, and I'll jump on with you. If you all want to have a group session, we can do that too. Let me know. Otherwise, if you have just individual questions, email me, text me, or call me. Study every day. It's easier to do this in chunks rather than cram it all in at the end. But other than that, have a great week. Bye.